And we're live.
Cool.
Man. So, Cabernet conversation episode.
I'm going to like these. I think this is going to be its own little staple.
You know, what's kind of unique about doing the Cabernet conversation episode is it's not necessarily purely knowledge-based. And it's actually kind of a way for us to just kind of bullshit for a while.
Yeah, that way we can do like knowledge-based things when we get some drinks instead of just ramble on for 20 minutes before we even talk about a wine or guest. We could focus more on just what's going on around everybody and whether it's in the booze industry or whatnot while we have a glass of cab.
Whatnots. That's a
Whatnots.
That's a kind of a word that kind of popped up in, society. What is it? A whatnot?
I don't know, man.
It doesn't exactly make sense.
There's so many things out there that we say, and I don't think there's a lot of meaning behind it now, but back in the day, something mattered.
Yeah.
Like something as simple as a penny for your thought kind of thing. Like, well, now it's like $100 for your thought.
Now it's going to be a Bitcoin for your thought.
It's a Bitcoin for your thought, yeah.
It's got to be something like that.
Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. What the fuck is a gift horse?
True. And why the hell would you look at one anyways?
Like, does it bite you if you look at it? Like, it's just, look at its mouth. Snap, grabs you in the face.
You know, some of the phrases we have and that are common, you're right. A lot of them just don't match today's society, or other societies have different translations that work better. Like what's coming up is something like break a leg. I've always hated that. It sounds so dumb. Like, oh, go break a leg.
Yeah.
But in Italy, they say in buca al lupo, which means into the mouth of the wolf. That sounds much better.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, but it's like, go get it. Like, jump into the mouth of the wolf.
You know what we have in America? We have yeet. We're going to yeet that. Like, what the fuck? And I found out yeet recently. It's been just grab it and just fucking toss it.
Is that what it means?
Basically, yeah. So like, oh man, they just yeeted that. They just grabbed it and threw it out that way.
So weird.
And I might not even be right. Every time I watch a video, they're like, man, he yeeted that. And just I thought it was a Kanye West thing. And maybe it is a Kanye West thing. And maybe it's a Fortnite thing. I don't fucking know. I feel old. Like I'm 32 and I don't even know what certain people are saying anymore. But it's fun to say. I'm gonna be that like old guy at 50 saying the wrong things, and like kids and teenagers are gonna look at me like you're an idiot. But I'm gonna make fun of every bit about it.
Just making sure that we have this all dialed in too, because we're messing around with mics. You have the right mics going on for us here, 1 and 3.
Yeah,
just making sure.
Yeah, 1 and 3.
You know, as we're experimenting with video,
I'm looking at it like, nope, yep, got it.
Yeah, well, because the first ever Twitch stream we recorded without sound, which
that was fun.
Yeah. Wonderful. We were so excited, and we were muted for an hour and 45 minutes.
So all they see is...
Yes.
It's like watching an Italian movie that was done in black and white with no sounds, where it's just dubs.
I was saying, I wonder if I could like type subtitles on it and still post it.
Do like an MXC style. We should go back and just overdub ourselves.
Our Mystery Science 3000 or whatever.
Idiot drinking wine. Yeah, that movie was. Did you ever see? Like, did you watch Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I watched it religiously when I was a little kid.
Such a great show. They brought it back on Netflix,
and I didn't watch any of the remakes. I think it was just part of the nostalgia of my childhood. I didn't want to like spoil it and ruin it, because a lot of the shit that we watched when we were kids was so cheesy. When you try and redo it in a modern society or a modern take, it doesn't work. Like I hadn't seen it in forever. I watched Beetlejuice the other night.
Really?
Cheesy as all hell.
It's funny.
And I think they're not remaking, but they're doing a sequel, I think, finally.
Sucks.
But if Beetlejuice came out today, it would have a 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
it would be
probably
horrible. Like everyone would leave the theater going, "Oh my god, that was atrocious."
Well, I mean, I recently watched Airplane because it's on Netflix, and I couldn't stop laughing because everything's set up for a punchline. Now, it's not a matter of you can't say that today. It's you can't make a movie where it's punchline after punchline after punchline with just stuff in the background that's already a joke. Like I finally just realized as they show the plane flying, it's a twin engine jet, but they use a prop plane as the sound. I'm like, that's so stupid. And it's just hilariously dumb.
And they're like, Shirley, you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley. I mean, there's so many fun lines in there. And also, there's a lot of racist stuff in that movie.
Dude, there's everything. The girl who talks jive to the two black dudes up there talking jive.
Oh my God. Millennials' heads would explode if they made that movie nowadays.
Oh my God.
Somebody would be offended.
Of course. Like Tropic Thunder was amazing. And that's like limits that even now he almost won an Oscar for that.
That might have been the last of the super vulgar, super like can get away with something movies.
See, I don't think so. I think now it is, but I think like most things, it's kind of cyclical. I think now everybody's all PC'd, and then eventually this next group of people who gain some form of power are going to hate PC culture so much. They're basically going to turn around and say, shut up, and then bring back done. They're not going to go, Naked Gun or Police Academy or Mel Brooks's like any movie that he did
Any Mel
style
Brooks.
thing.
I mean, yeah.
They're not going to go to that limit.
Blazing Saddles is one of the most ruthless movies ever made. It's hilarious. Like,
him popping over? Where the white women at?
everybody should watch Blazing Saddles at least once every like 5 years.
Especially people who get offended because hopefully your head explodes and we don't have to deal with you. But yeah, Tropic Thunder was perfect because like they really pushed the limit, and that was 2000 and I don't know what 10 maybe. No, it's probably a little like 2009, 2008, I think is when that was.
I mean, they pushed it on a couple subjects in that movie too.
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, I'm still happy with most stuff we have up, but I haven't seen a good comedy, like a real laugh out loud, uncontrollable crying comedy in a while.
And some producers can get away with stuff. I just watched the other night The Black Klansman.
Oh, it was a good one.
And I enjoyed the movie. It was actually...
But it was, what's his name?
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee.
Which,
Spike Lee's dope.
But, I mean... If Spike Lee didn't do it, maybe some people would be like, "Oh, I don't know about that."
It's a good point. Maybe.
I hate that shit. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. I don't like ballet, but I'm not going to go bash it whenever I get an opportunity to. And Sarah hates UFC, but she doesn't sit there and go, God, why do you just like watching people beat the crap? She's just like, whatever, go enjoy your nonsense.
Warm climate Chardonnay offends me.
Oh.
Hey, some people enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, over-oaked nonsense $5 cab on a shelf offends me.
Yeah, Mad Dog 2020 offends me.
So what does the MD stand for? Because it's not Mad Dog.
What was it again? It was like not Michael David, but it was
Michael David.
It was some name along those lines. It's
Michael Dordan.
Yeah, it's like some dude's name.
Yeah.
Like it was like the guy
it's
who
not
invented
Mad Dog. I was always told, I grew up drinking Mad Dog 20 in Boone's Farm and Blue Nun. I'm like, and now that after we talked about this, it's not Mad Dog. Yeah.
So crazy.
So yeah, so I brought this one for this conversation because what was the last cab we did?
So we did 2 cabs. I think we did one of the Malm cabs, and we did something else. We grabbed just a couple wines out of the back.
Yeah.
And just popped a couple cabs and had a good conversation. Cabernet is a wine that people could just sit around and talk about.
Yeah.
And just have a good conversation with your friends. You can get into some arguments. You could love each other. You could hate each other. You can hug it out. You can cry. I mean,
you get into loud screaming arguments over the same thing about a women's soccer team.
I mean,
with your dad.
Yeah, well, exactly. You think about nights when you and I drink a couple white wines, whatever, with your father. We have a decent conversation. We start drinking cab, the conversation always gets deeper. It always goes a little, sometimes too far after bottle number 6.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, is it the amount of bottles we drink? Or is it? But to be fair, for the most part, he's a cab drinker. You're not. You're getting into it. I'm a cab and Italian drinker. But for the vast majority of Americans, they're cab drinkers.
See, I don't want to say I'm not a cab drinker. It's one of those things that I don't like over-extracted cabs. I don't like young cabs. So many times people open up an old cab. I'm like, this is fucking delicious.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. I just don't like the fact that most of the ones that come out nowadays, they're too in your face or too oaky. They're just not ready to drink. And the ones that are ready to drink, a lot of them are just cheap.
To me, I kind of equate wines to certain cars, like regions to cars, whatever. A Cabernet to me always comes out as a Mustang. And I say that because there's a million different Mustangs. Your basic Mustang is cool. It's fun to drive. It's nice. Some people just hate it because they just hate Mustangs. But the fact of the matter is, if you have a Mustang, that's the kind of car. But then everybody tweaks it. Then you have the 5.0. Then you have the Saline. You have the Roush. You have the Shelby Cobra. The Cobras are those high-end ones. And I kind of equate them to cars because there's always a basic version. There's always the holy shit high-end. And the high-end doesn't actually turn out to be that good. It just looks like it's really good. And then it's actually a piece of crap, terribly built thing. And then sometimes some people get their hand on that same car and they turn it into this amazing piece of art that travels the country, and there's only like 5 or 6 of them built, kind of a thing. And there's certain wines that I have where I'm always like, okay, let's see where this goes. This one, to me, I grabbed this because this is old. I wanted to do something old, not young this time. So I grabbed this one. It's Barbour Vineyards. So it's out of St. Helena. It's a big style cab. Heidi Barrett made this one back when I think they first started this vineyard site.
So Napa cab prices are now officially leveling out. For a number of years now, they've been on a constant upswing, and they keep getting more and more expensive. We've now seen 2 years in a row of a plateau.
It's about time.
Maybe they finally hit their, I don't want to spend any more money on this. Like
that, or it might be a bad sign where people just aren't buying the super high-end stuff because they're prepping for like a tail in the economy or something.
So this is the crazy thing. You're going to be blowing the most expensive wine in America.
Screaming Eagle Sauv Blanc.
Yep. Crazy, the white.
I could tell you that one right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Screaming Eagle Sauv Blanc goes for like $2,000-3,000.
Average price in America right now.
I'm going with $3,000.
$5,923 per bottle. That's a fucking Sauvignon Blanc.
It's a Sauv Blanc.
What the fuck? You
can buy 5,200 Sauv Blancs that are okay.
You could buy a $10. You could literally buy 592 bottles.
You could buy an entire acre worth of Sauv Blanc and make your own label.
Off that one bottle, I can get drunk for like 2 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you could put a down payment on a car.
So that's the most expensive wine produced in America.
I'm getting
number 2 is
Eagle.
Screaming Eagle Cab at $3,567 as the average price.
This top American expensive ones? Okay, so a Scarecrow will be in there. Top 5.
Scarecrow is in there.
Harlan.
Harlan is number 3.
Okay,
And
that's Bond.
at $1,065 average price.
What was Scarecrow?
Scarecrow is number 5 at an average price of $794. Colgan is not on this list.
Schrader
is not on this list.
Wow.
Scarecrow Cab.
Hold on.
Screaming Eagle The Flight.
Oh, okay. So
is
they had
number
their second
6.
one.
So 3 of the top 6 are Screaming Eagles.
That is crazy. By the way, though, think about this, though. The people who buy Screaming Eagle Cab probably also, in their allocation, just buy the other 2 just because they can. It's not a matter of, I can only afford the cab. These guys have 10 houses around the world and just go, oh, fuck it, just buy the whole damn thing. Yep. Which is probably why they get away with a $5,000 Sauv Blanc.
Realm, the absurd proprietary red at $692 is number 8.
I'm on that list, and I'm hoping to buy one this year because they sell them at like $400.
Yeah, this is retail pricing too. This is
it's not what the list.
This is average retail price in America. So of course, by the time this hits New York City, it might be cheaper or more expensive than what it is in California or from the winery. If you're picking it up at the winery, you don't have to ship it all the way across the country in like refrigerated trucks.
Yeah. Realm the Absurd. Yeah.
Number 9, Bryant Family Cabernet at $625.
Really, Bryant Family. I think they just got sold, or maybe it was Grace Family. It was either Grace or Bryant. One of them just got sold. And so, all right. So we're on 10.
And 10.
It's got to be a brand.
Levy and McClellan Cabernet Sauvignon, Napa Valley, $624.
I've actually never heard of them.
I've never have either.
No.
And we actually missed number 4. I didn't mention was Tusk Estate Cabernet.
Tusk. I've heard of Tusk. I've never had it.
And that's at $868 a bottle.
So I've only had Screaming Eagle once. And I got a sip, like literally like a 1.5 ounce pour, because somebody had the end of it and was like, "Here, try it." And
was it 10 times better than the $350 bottle that you've had?
No, it wasn't. Here's the thing, though. To me, it's straight one. You've mentioned this before in some wines, and I don't usually get it when you say graphite or pencil shavings. I tasted that and I was like, "Oh my god, it tastes like the tip of a pencil." Like, but that's all I tasted. Now, granted, this was like a 2000 something. It was older. And I didn't have a chance to sit there when they first opened the bottle and let us see how the night goes. So my initial introduction was a 1 ounce pour of Screaming Eagle, and I didn't like it at all. Not one bit.
So when it comes to America right now, Napa Valley dominates Cabernets.
Yeah.
So people that are looking to buy Cabernets from alternate regions, where do they go? Because right now, Napa's, in a way, has priced themselves out of the everyday consumer market. There is some cheap cab out there that's produced in Napa. It's really not that good. I mean, I know that there's some that are hitting the markets right now at $18 to $24, retail, and they're okay. Some of them are decent.
Ooh, that's big.
But right now, so many of the Napa producers keep getting more and more and more expensive. I mean, whether you got the Turnbulls of the world, the Groths, the Alpha Omegas. You go all the way up and down through Silverado Trail or 29
And Turnbull's cheap compared to Alpha Omega and Groth in some cases.
I always like Plump Jack, but I'm pretty sure Plump Jack's getting in the probably $60 to $80 range, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it with Pinot Noir. Granted, Sonoma is bigger, but I used to be a huge fan of Williams Selliams. I'm no longer a fan, but I just don't buy their wines anymore because their cheapest one now is like $50-$60 and creeping up, and it used to be $30-$40, and now I'm like, all right, if I love it, I'll spend the money on that bottle that I love and I'll sell it. But I no longer care to love the ones that are $100, $150. I only spend that kind of money on a cab I know nobody's ever going to get, or a Italian wine that nobody's ever going to get, and that I can sell it for 10 years and break out at a really cool moment randomly. But I drink wines like that on the regular. So Sojourn's been my one because they're $30 and it's fantastic. There's $20 Pinots that are starting to get really, really good that I enjoy.
So where does somebody in the United States, go to get something that's affordable, juicy, that's going to over deliver for the price? Because to me, Napa Valley does not over deliver for the price.
So I'll tell you, I've recently had two that I thought were fantastic for the price. Three, just to throw it out there, there are great Sonoma ones, but you got to actually actively look. But for the price, Argentina Cab is crushing it, and Washington is still honestly not, like, their high-end stuff's priced out, but their low stuff is not. I think Washington has great Merlot and Cab, and Merlot that acts like a Cab. Big, jammy, juicy, all the flavors. I think if you branch and try that, you'll nail something. But you're right. If you're looking to try to get into Cabernet and you go straight for Napa, I think you're going to have two problems. One, Napa Cab is Napa Cab. It's not Cabernet the rest of the way the world makes it for the most part. Napa Cab is a very specific Parkerized way of doing it. Big, over-macerated, higher alcohol, and jammy. And that's kind of more of a norm of the mass-produced things. I'm not saying that's how it is for any of the mountain people or any of your small guys, but it's just probably what you as a consumer who are trying a new cab is going to run into. But for $10, I had an Argentina Cab that was fantastic. It's probably what Napa was when we had that Freemark Abbey and it had the $8 sticker tag on it. And that's probably what some of these guys down in Argentina are doing.
I mean, I was just talking about a tasting that we had not too long ago where we had like a 1980 Sterling, and that
it was
wine,
the 73 from Atlas.
It blew us away.
Dude, it was so good.
Oh, it was in this. Yeah, it was the 70s. Oh my God, you're
73.
right.
I remember because that was the first time I had an old cab, and I went, wow.
We had Montebello. There was all sorts of stuff on that table that was banging. Like mid 80s, mid 90s Napa wines were fantastic.
Also, alcohol was like 12, 13% at most.
Didn't expect it to hold up, and that wine was still fucking fresh as a daisy. Like I was really, really impressed by that.
I was talking about this with, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but we were basically saying, how did you go from that 1973 Sterling, which was amazing that it made it this far, to now Sterling is just like it's on every shelf across the entire USA for $10, and it might make it, a month later.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's the oak that they're using. I don't know if it's the fact that they've overexpanded, that they've overproduced. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not in that world necessarily. I don't work for a big name winery.
Yeah.
Speaking of Argentina, so they just did their harvest happened already. Their 2019s are already in.
Are they really? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Yeah, because, February and March. But what is it? It's just white wine.
They harvest in spring. So right now you're going to start seeing the whites hitting the market. It's always funky when you start seeing New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs or whites from Argentina or Chile hitting the American market. And you're seeing 2019. We haven't even picked our 2019s yet.
But to be fair, though, how bad is that for their versions for rosés? Because nobody wants to drink a rosé. Now, we like to drink a rosé, but the average consumer,
it's hitting in the
they won't drink it in October, November.
But how often have you seen an Argentinian or Chilean rosé?
That's a good point. I can't honestly off the top of my head think of one.
You don't see them out there. I mean, they make their varietals the way they are. I'm sure that they're at the winery. We just don't see them in America.
That's a good point. They probably keep a lot in house or in country for the most part, probably.
So harvest reports are now in for the vintage.
For South America or Southern Hemisphere.
And I'm not quite sure. I haven't done the research yet on Australia or New Zealand, but Argentina is saying it's their best vintage in upwards of 10 years. It was a very hot season, but they didn't have a lot of rain. Yields are a little bit lower in Argentina. Yields in Chile this year way down, 30%. Quality is through the roof, though, because the yields are so low. That's the thing. The more grapes you produce, typically the lower your quality.
I'm so intrigued to see how Europe's going to turn out this year because that heat wave has been so bad.
Yeah, and there's been no break. Break. And that's what happened in Argentina this year is that they had a break. They actually had some really cool nights. They had a good... And what happens when you have those hot summers and cool nights it allows the wines to produce acid. The acid levels right now in the Argentina wines are saying it's some of the best acidity levels they've ever hit.
I will say for even in Arizona, we're having a very intriguing year in a good way. I've talked to a lot of the guys so far who are getting ready to pick. So by this time last year, they were already picking their whites. Last year, we harvested August 2nd in Arizona, and nobody's picked yet. They're thinking August 14th to the 20th area in between those, we're going to start picking their first whites. Because they're like, it's been kind of a nice year. Like, the days stay warm, but man, the nights have just been cool. And it's kind of, it's letting the grapes ripen a little bit more than normal. So I think Arizona might actually have some decent grapes this year. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how this goes. You know, short of, well, I remember last year we had a hurricane come up the Baja and fucked up vintage so bad because it dumped so much rain on that Sonoda Wilcox Elgin area. This year, yeah, they get some monsoons, but they tend to miss a little bit. And we'll see what happens. But so far, no hurricane threat.
I've been following a couple of the producers from the South through social media, and I know that they haven't had a lot of breaks from rain. And last night they had a break. So
a lot of rain the other day.
Last night, everybody was running out to pick last night. Like, people were picking late into the night because it was a nice break in the weather. Just so you don't want to bring in grapes all wet, and because you're going to get
not to mention extra water and the juice and
must
your grapes
and mildew,
are
and you could end up with a lot of issues bringing in a bunch of like
That's
wet grapes.
one thing I've never noticed about Arizona. I don't think I've seen mildew almost ever. You know, we've had some other problems that, you know, we're not really allowed to talk about, but like mildew was never really a huge one in that case. I just don't think it's ever that moist because, you know, if it rains the next day it's humid as shit, but then all of a sudden it's dry as the hell the next day.
What was that word you said?
Moist.
It's a trigger word for some people.
Some people.
It cracks me up.
They don't like being all moist. There's something about the moi.
There's like people that are cringing right now every time you say that.
Just fuck this. I'm not watching this.
All right, so every time we say moist during this show, you need to drink.
My mouth needs to be moist.
Yeah,
what do you think of this so far?
So,
Like,
oh my God.
impressions,
First thoughts, fantastic. It was, you said big, but to me, it's actually really creamy and round, and it's not aggressive. It's really, to me, it's actually kind of soft. Like, it doesn't have aggressive tannins. They're really sanded down. You know, we talk about hazy IPAs, how the edges are sanded off. That's how I feel about this right now.
Okay, cool. I like where we're going with this, but let's figure out what we mean by big. So I, as somebody who's been in the wine industry from every aspect, both of us, my idea of big is a physical feel of big. Some people's big is super tannic and aggressive and bitter, which isn't big. To me, big is like, this is like drinking like a whole milk, kind of like it's big on my mouth. But you're right, the tannins are so soft. Like there's no grip. It's all rounded smoothly. It is. It's like having like a lactose IPA. There's no sweetness, but but it feels big in my mouth.
There's two characteristics to me that make a wine make me want to say the word big, and that's going to be tannin structure and mouthfeel. So there are big, juicy Zinfandels that don't have a lot of tannin, but the viscosity is heavy.
Big.
I mean, it's high alcohol and juicy, extracted. It's raisiny. Some of those wines are ginormous, like stuff like Opolo Zin, a lot of those Paso Robles Zinfandels. The tannin structure is not high on it, but the viscosity and the alcohol level is high.
Yeah.
So I go, holy shit, this is a big wine. Also, on the other end of the spectrum, for me, I also consider a big wine ones that are very high in tannins because it kicks you in your teeth. Like, you're just like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? Like, even some of those Barolos that are really aggressive, those are big wines to me.
But see, that's where I would disagree.
They're thin.
Yeah.
Well, they're thin in the palate to me, but I think it's the tannins that make me say the word big. Rarely have I ever used the term big on a Pinot Noir.
I don't think, you know what you would use? A Maomi comes off as too big.
That's because it's 50% Zinfandel.
But so for me, I think of it like
Syrah.
Like a UFC or even a heavyweight fighter. Like a heavyweight guy could be that big, giant dude, but he throws little delicate hits, or, you know, you get Mike Tyson knocking you out to another planet. But if you have that scrawny, what's a Mighty Mouse kind of a guy, he's not big, but he'll knock you clean to another planet. Like that can be some Barolos. They're light, but the tannin is aggressive. Like that's where I come in with that. I don't say big for tannin.
But Muhammad Ali was a heavyweight, but he floated like a butterfly and stung like a bee. That's Barolo. Barolo floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. That's not Napa Cab. So I mean, that's why I say that's kind of, it is a term that I think we talked about this actually on our first Cabernet conversation episode, as we got this whole debate about
What's big. Yeah.
And just like the word dry to me isn't the same to him or her or you, the word dry is different to a lot of different people. We have different tastes.
Yeah.
We have different taste buds. We have different sensations we feel when we try wine. So some people, I've had this happen a lot at tastings. They're like, oh, that's dry. And I'm like,
it's not dry.
it's a sweet wine.
Yeah.
Like, but it's the way people perceive it.
But to be fair, it's one of the very few things. I think alcohol in general is one of the many things that there's no education for until you get into it. It's not like, like you're in grade school, they teach you a little bit of English, then they teach you more English, and then as you go life, they teach you across your life. You just jump in to wine or beer or liquor, and you hope somebody's going to teach you how to swim. And if you don't know how to swim, you're just fucking doggy paddling. You go, oh, I'm swimming. I've been swimming my whole life. This is how I do it. And you're like, no, you're an idiot. Let me tell you how it really is, kind of a thing. So everybody I know who comes into my winery sits there, and my thing with the dryness, and I do correct them, but I don't do it like disrespectfully by any means. They go, oh, I like a dry wine, but not too dry of a wine, but a little bit dry. And I go, oh, I'm sorry. Like, you're thinking of tannin. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, cool. Well, let me teach you. So dryness just means sugar. Like, there's no sugar in these wines. These are all going to be dry. But what you're thinking is that tactile sensation, where it's kind of chalky. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, that's tannin. Do you like that? No, I hate that. Cool. Well, then we're not going to have this cab that I make, and I'm not going to push you on this, Sagrantino I make or whatever I do. So you would like a Gamay or a Pinot Noir, or maybe this soft Merlot might be like right at that boundary for you. But, and then most of the time people are like, oh, okay. So, if I, went to a restaurant and I said, I don't like a tannic wine versus a dry wine, I would say the somm will know what you're saying. If you say, hey, I don't like a tannic wine, but I like red, they'll give you a Beaujolais or, a Pinot Noir or something soft. The big, I have no idea how to explain that to me. It's like trying to tell somebody what green is.
Yeah, well, it's actually really funny too, because you can't go the opposite of it. You can go into a restaurant and say, hey, I want a big wine, and the sommelier can get an idea of what you want. If you say, hey, I want a little wine, he's like, what? You can't go the opposite.
Can I get a petite wine, like a Syrah? No.
Yeah. I want a little wine.
Yeah.
A what? You're like, well, I don't like big, so I want little. And that thought process comes from a friend of mine that worked in Vegas that once, I think I was telling you, that somebody came in and said they wanted a wet wine once. And it was one of the funniest things. I remember her posting this on her social media. I'm like, wait, what? Like, she was blown away. She's like, I had to have a conversation with this person. Like, they wanted a wet wine. All they knew is they didn't like dry wines. And so they're like, what's the opposite of dry? Wet. So they tried to order a wet wine.
Hey, what's the opposite of dry? Moist.
Drink.
I like no, man, I like I love the educational aspect for wine, especially when the light bulb goes off in somebody's head, and when it doesn't, it's actually kind of funny. But I find what was that brand you represented from the T-shaped islands off of Sicily, Colossi, the Nero d'Avola. The Nero d'Avola comes off big to me. Like, if that sat in my mouth, it would feel big, but there's like zero tannin to that wine, but it feels big.
A lot of Nero does feel big. Colossis were always a little softer. Like, they had a little balance. They made such a unique styled Nero. Yeah. That's why I always loved it, because it was so food friendly, easy drinking.
Yeah.
Because across Sicily too is that some of those grapes they get blasted by sun. They're sitting in an area where the grapes become raisiny and higher in alcohol, and other times they tend to be a little softer. Like, to me, that would be a very tough wine to blind taste and pick up and guess what it is.
Okay.
I'd have a lot of trouble guessing Nero blind tasting anything. It happened recently. We were blind tasting something, and it was maybe an Etna Rosso, I think.
Was this recently?
Yeah, I think we had it together.
We did the Etna. We did one with Sean where it was that blend of Nero and what's the other grape of Sicily that everybody loves? That red grape.
Nerello Mascalese.
That's it.
Yep, Etna Rosso.
Oh, it was James.
Yeah.
We were sitting here doing the Google Maps game.
That's right. It was with James, because he brought a bunch of wines that he was showing that day. Correct.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that was the same thing up there too. You were like, I sat there and I was like, I don't even know. But to be fair, like the other day I had a Nebbiolo. I put it on our Instagram, and I thought it was a Gamay. I was super convinced. I was like, this is Gamay. It comes off with that real tartish flavors and a little pepper in there. And he puts that Nebbiolo down and goes, no, this is what the Nebbiolo was made in the 17th century. It's like, wow, that was different.
So let's go back to cool regions or good regions for people to drink Cabernets, because I really, right now with the price of Napa Cab going up and up and up, and yeah, the high-end ones are starting to level out, but they're so expensive. I think people that are just getting into wine need to try something without trying black box or some boxed wine or, something that's $3 a bottle or $5 a bottle. Granted, there's some introductory ones that are okay.
Yeah. We did an episode on introductory one with the Rodney Strong.
But I feel like if somebody is going to go to a wine store and talk to their local wine purveyor and say, I want to try a Cabernet, but I don't want to spend a lot of money, I would send them right now in America to 2 specific growing regions. Washington is one of them. Mm-hmm. Now, Washington cabs got very expensive, and they got their hands slapped during the recession. The recession they did. A huge number of them went out of business. It was actually, they were one of the hardest hit states in the nation.
So they just try to be like, we're Napa's second, like 2.0, and everybody went, no, you're not.
Recession hit, and all these people had $100 million leases and loans on their property, and a ton of people went out of business at that point. Now, the wines that are growing, I think, up in parts of Washington State can mimic, in a way, almost like a Napa Cab. Mm-hmm. Big, bold, juicy, it has structure, it has backbone. They're not flimsy, where in some parts they tend to be a little more flimsy. Yeah. The other area that I really do appreciate when it comes to Cabernet right now is going to be Paso.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about Paso.
Paso Cab, I mean, it's becoming a term now, Paso Cab. People are like, Paso Cab. Because the wines are juicy and approachable. They're not too tannic, but they're always ready to drink right now.
And it's inexpensive.
You can get a great Paso Cab for under $20 that will over-deliver for the price.
Yes.
And I think out of America, I mean, granted, we're growing grapes in Temecula. There's grapes all up and down through the Central Coast.
There's not a single state that doesn't have grapes.
We were drinking Brenda Mom's Monterey Cab Franc that was delicious that day, too.
No,
Malibu Cab Franc. So,
which might be on fire at some point.
And right now, they've actually expanded the AVAs across Paso Robles. So you actually have stuff like Templeton. You have certain areas that actually have designations themselves.
What did they make, like 11 of them? 14 of them?
I think it's like 11.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. No, I think actually I think you definitely nailed it. Let's stay domestic. I do think Argentina is going to be really cool because I've just been lucky enough to have a couple. I've had some Italian wines where you don't get the American, that new world style of stuff. Like there's some great Italian cabs, but if you have Napa Cab, and perfect example, Dad drinks Napa Cab. I poured him that San Marco.
Yes,
I know. Exactly. He just sat there and went, "It doesn't do anything for me." And that was our cab. And he's like, I was like, "Oh, well."
They tend to miss some of the viscosity of the American cabs.
I just think we've talked about this. Big.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the weight when they're produced overseas. I mean, that's just the way they are. I have had a number of Spanish Cabernets that are very, very good. Price point is very reasonable, but it's also a little scary to try and buy a Spanish Cab or try to explain to somebody to go buy a Spanish Cab, where I can literally say, go to Washington, buy a Columbia Valley wine, buy a wine from this region, and it's going to be
Genuit.
Yeah.
Novelty Hill.
Yeah, fantastic.
We did that in the last one. But so when you think of let's talk about the future of Paso. So I think
over 200 wineries right now, by the way, are registered in Paso.
And that's not a lot, honestly. That Napa Valley has 435. So Paso's not really it's still scraping their potential. And I know there's definitely some ones out there that are already hitting the $80, $90, $100. I know there's definitely a $200 one out there. I've seen it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But the one thing about it is universally, there's a lot of options. It's not just Cab. Cab's great, but you know what else they do? They have Syrah. There's Zinfandel out there. I have seen that Rhone-style blend with the Grenache and the Mourvedre. I've seen a couple whites. I've had a couple whites. I don't like the whites of Paso Robles. I think it's just too hot for it. I'm not saying that Malvasia and Roussanne don't do well, because I know we like Sans Liege has great whites, but again, no tannin. Sans Liege's whites are big.
They are. They're a little too much for me.
Yeah.
You know, when I drink a white, I like racy whites. You know me.
Yeah,
I want,
like a
I want,
zippy and tangy and drinking wise.
I don't need a big full mouth white. Like, there's just too much for what I want in a wine. And you're right. Granted, we're generalizing. There are producers that produce some very beautiful white wines that are soft, that don't come across as warm climate. Sextant used to make some unbelievable Chardonnays. If I blind tasted them, I never would guess that they were.
You poured me a Riesling one time from Australia, from one of the warmest regions of Australia, and I was like, "This is a Riesling? It's amazing." Yeah. There are definitely, you know. Speaking of bad terms, but that what is it like? There's definitely rules to what that thumb rule. I can't remember what the hell that saying was. It was in here. It's gone.
Come on, use your words.
Damn it. Anyways, so there's definitely like some exceptions to the rule, kind of a thing. But for the average consumer who goes and drinks a Paso wine and they go get a cab, you're definitely gonna be happy no matter what you spend on it, and it's gonna be under $20.
Paso's known for Zins. That's what they're known for.
And honestly, I don't think they should be.
And I worked for a producer out there that started literally, he stopped planting Zinfandel, and all he's doing is planting cab, because he's realizing the cab that's being produced out there is pretty damn good. And they can produce it for a decent price, and cab sells easy. It's the king of the American wines. It's the most
I mean, you're
drank
gonna
wine
make
in
your
America.
money. You're gonna make. It's honestly, Cabernet is your bill-paying wine, basically. Unless you make that holy crap. So, by the way, I think it's rule of thumb. That's the thing I was thinking. A saying that I can't remember, but rule of thumb. Like, where did that saying come from? Let's bring that full circle.
So, California right now has roughly 4,000 wineries registered in California, bonded wineries. These aren't necessarily custom crushes. These are registered wineries in California.
All right, so we're removing the massive super production.
You're removing the one-man operation who buys a handful of grapes and has a truck come to his house and make random shit. Bonded wineries, like an actual official bonded. That's bonded though. Like those are
bonded.
Yeah,
but this guy only has like a.
That's fine.
50-acre vineyard.
Yeah, I mean the term bonded winery is actually
I know,
yeah,
because like we have ours we're number 88 of Arizona or something like that. Or 32.
The people who make Ghost Block, they're called, the name of their company is actually Bonded Winery number 9 because they have the 9th bonded winery ever in California.
Isn't Buena Vista number 2? Buena Vista's bonded winery number 2, or Gammak Bunchu. It's one of those two.
Yeah. So right now in America we have just over 9,000 bonded wineries.
And 4,000 are California.
Huh? Correct.
Yeah, because in Arizona we're at 113.
I went down the rabbit hole deep the other night with stats. This is the math guy in me.
It's funny, man. You're the stats guy. I'm the impulsive fly by the handle. Let's just go whatever. You're like, no. Let's pace this out.
Once I start looking at stats, I spend about 2 hours looking at stats, and then I jump on social media and I'm like, hey guys, look, this is what I learned. And people are like, holy shit, what's wrong with you?
You're a numbers guy. I'm a visionary.
Yeah. But I think the numbers, being a numbers guy has actually allowed me to analyze wine because I have an analytical brain. So when I try a wine, I start over-analyzing it all. It tastes like this, tastes like this, tastes like this. Speaking of this, let's go down another little rabbit hole, or go down another tangent.
Oh, you got a fact sheet?
No. I'll get to the fact sheets in a minute.
All right.
So at a scientific institute in Glasgow, they finally created a artificial tongue. And this artificial tongue can officially
do things that most men can't, probably, to women.
Yes. It can identify the vintage of Scotch, who produced it.
Of course they would make it Scotch driven.
But it's also working for wine. This is going to lead into how to tell if wines are fake. And people are going to be able to register a product. They're going to be able to take a wine, put it into the database, and then 10 years from now, you're going to be able to pour a drop onto this artificial tongue, and it will say that is a 2011 Silver Oak Cabernet Sauvignon. Based on, it's something like, it's thousands of times more potent and powerful than us. So they did this with scotches. With a 99% accuracy, it was able to tell you the producer and if it was a 12-year, 18-year, 20-year, what it was.
You know who's going to make the most amount of money? That 1%. They couldn't identify us. That's how good we are.
They're using it for fakes.
So here's the thing.
That's the reason why they're creating this.
This is so cool and weird at the same time. Like, I can't see
it.
a bad thing, but it's a fucking dope. But think about this. All right. So great. You got it for fakes. I'm thinking of two things. One, what you can implement it with a robot. So let's come back to the robot conversation in a minute, because that's going to be a fun one. But for right now, how does that work with a wine? Because it physically, chemically changes. So does a beer. Like what if it's vinegar at that point? How do you know, like, when you take that and pour it on there and it just doesn't go vinegar?
There are certain chemical compounds in the wine that it's able to identify, and it logs those. So the same thing with Scotch. I read through this article, and so
sorry to interrupt, but is this gonna be like, it's gonna be like a 23andMe where, like, the more the data goes in, the better it gets. So, like, hey, we made this cab from this soil in this region, and then they take it, they add it to it, and then it processes it and goes, oh, okay, this soil, this temp, blah blah blah, and then it's got it, and so there for life it knows.
So you take your bottle of John Coppin's Cabernet and you submit it to the institute. They test it and they say this is all the qualities of it, and literally, like 23andMe, it knows exactly what the 2019 Coppin's Cab is.
That's crazy.
The 2020 comes out, you submit that goes in, and it knows that there's a little bit of difference. Just like with DNA, they can tell the difference of this. So in 20 years, somebody can test it and be like, that's testing within this region. It's going to be one of probably these three wines. It's going to be from this vintage because all the wines in this vintage had this characteristic in this soil. And this is probably going to be Coppin's Cabernet from 2010, 2017.
I wonder at one point how much cost comes into play for things like that. Because if you think about the amount of wine that's given away to things, think about, you got to submit to a spectator, enthusiast, a museum, a festival, now this wine tongue-based thing. At what point in time you're giving away so much wine? Then now you got to raise the price up a little bit just because you have to give away a shit ton of wine to get all these things kind of done.
I mean, I'm a computer geek. You know that.
Yeah.
I blew your mind in the back room here as I went down the rabbit.
I just stared at you like,
what language are you speaking? Because I was talking about computer jargon and shit.
Yeah.
But the first computers that came out were the size of this room.
Yeah, and it was like 5 megabytes.
Less than. I mean, it was insane what was years ago where it is now. Now our phone that we have in our pocket is more powerful, like thousands of times more powerful than the PC that I had 20 years ago or 10 years ago.
Dude, I have a USB at home that's a terabyte, and it's like,
yeah,
it's thick, but it doesn't matter. You still look at it and you're like,
so this tasting tongue that they've created to test scotches and wines to see what they are and if they're real or fake or not, at some point could plug into your phone in 20 years and plug it to the bottom of your USB port or on the bottom of your phone. You could just dip it into your wine.
It's like a diabetic strip, basically.
Yes. I'm telling you, this is where it's going to go. They're going to be able to dip in your wine, and it's going to come up, and it's going to say, this is the 2007, blah, 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 blah. Do you wish to leave a review on it?
I'm not going to lie. That kind of sucks, man. Like, I get it if you buy an auction lot.
It'll put Rudy out of business.
Yeah. But, like, I know that this bot, because who the fuck is going to copy Barbour Vineyards? Nobody. And by the way, the cork crumbled into this thing so bad. Like, I know. I mean, especially, look. So I bought this from a private collection, but it was already at something because they put a barcode on it. And, like, honestly, I know we talked about this in, like, I think it was episode 9 when we were talking about Rudy and the fake and all that stuff. I don't want to know that it's fake.
You're right. That would actually really suck if you tested.
I don't want to know. I actually genuinely don't want to know, because the vast majority of my wine is single or 2 bottle things. Now, granted, I've been very fortunate to buy from wineries, and I get my things. I know they're real. But you're right. If I sold it to you and you didn't know me, you're going off my faith. That's fine. But I don't want to know I spent this money and it turns out it's fucking fake, because it's just wine. It's not like it's a Picasso, or if I bought a Lamborghini and I open the hood and it turns out there's a 6-banger Honda engine in there.
It's a kit car.
It's a fucking wine. And the end game of wine to me, I always want a good wine, but the only thing that matters is this.
Yeah, the conversation.
That's what matters to me. The geekiness of, oh, did you try this?
Okay.
Did you try this? Matters. And if somebody dips a fucking stick in there and goes, that's not real, night's ruined.
Okay. So the reason why they actually did this was not because of wine, because I didn't realize this.
It's probably a Scotch.
It was because of Scotch.
People blending things they shouldn't have
And I
been
did not
blending.
realize how the Scotch industry, especially with aged Scotches and vintage Scotches, are very heavily faked on the global market. And it's a bad problem right now in the global market.
Wow.
What we see here in America, I don't think we really see it as much here because we don't realize it, because there's not a lot of people necessarily selling what we call the gray market wines or stuff like in the little liquor
Yeah,
store
yeah,
in New York City. He's like, hey, I got this
thing. It's
I got
no label.
this 50-year-old Scotch that's Macallan and blah 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 blah. And I'll sell it to
Funny
you
because
for-
I see a lot of rare stuff coming out more and more. Oh, I've got a 1963
and
vintage.
now
this thing,
that Scotch collectors are getting more and more prominent in the market, and people are trying to grab old vintages, they want to have that 25-year-old, or they want to have that vintage Scotch that's like, this is the 1990 30-year-old, or this. Now, in America, when we drink a bottle of wine, we sit down, this bottle's gone, we're going to open a second one. With Scotch, you're going to savor that over
for years.
a long period of time. Look at that 18-year-old Lagavulin that I bought you.
I still have it.
How many years ago did I
It's
buy
here,
you that?
And I'm just sipping.
And the look in your eye when you pulled that bottle out, you're like, it's like your little baby.
Dude, I loved it. I fucking love it, man.
And this is, in America, I think most of what we get when it comes to Scotch is real. I think in Europe, it's a bad problem right now, like fake Scotches.
Which I can 100% see that happening in like an Eastern Bloc or in India or China, like places where the regulation's tough. So I guess again, it comes down to, I swear to God, if somebody told me tomorrow, hey, John, that Lagavulin that he gave you, or excuse me, the Lefroy 18 that Damien gave, turns out because he bought it in 2015, it was fake, I'd be so fucking mad. I'd be so mad. Not because it's fake, but because you told me it was fake. I rather have this idea that this is an 18, because I love Scotch, but I am not a 0.1% amazing person that could sit there and just, sip through all stuff. Now, wine,
but you're not.
I could do it with good stuff, but still, if you came to me and said, if this was fake and you poured this and the whole night you and I had this great conversation, great podcast, great show, everything, and at the end of it, I went, by the way, I bought this I poured Rodney Strong in here. You'd be like, what the fuck, man? You wouldn't be mad that this was fake. You'd be mad that I deceived you.
The price of Scotch, though, right now in auctions,
crazy.
especially but in auctions, these old ones, because we buy a lot of wine on auction.
Well, you know what we should do? We should take some Screaming Eagle Sauvignon Blanc bottles and just put fucking sun, just recork it. We'll make $5,000 a bottle.
You go to the very bottom of the auction page, there's always some spirits down on the bottom.
Yeah.
And some of those bottles are 3,000, 5,000, 8,000.
Cognacs, Scotch. It's always, by the way, you're right. It's always the Scotches, a cognac, and a whiskey.
And a lot of those get super expensive. And a lot of them are old. To be like, this is a 1950s single cask Scotch that was a 30-year-old Scotch and blah, 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 blah. And
it's funny you said that. All right, right there, the single cask. I have seen, and now that we've talked about this, I wonder, I've seen we found this barrel at the back at our place, and the barrel turns out is from 1953. And I wonder, I'm like, how did you not know that this barrel was
how did you lose a barrel for 30 years?
Yeah, now granted, to be fair, playing devil's advocate, in America, we've got like digital devices that track everything. And if you're an Irish Scotsman who drinks every fucking Irish Scotsman, sorry. If you're a Scotsman and you're drinking every night with your dad who drank every night and your grandpa who drinks, I could get you could lose a barrel because you get drunk one night and you're like, hey, laddie, let's roll a barrel and bury it in the ground. And then you forget. And 50 years later, they go, hey, we dug our backyard and we found this barrel. That's a real possibility in Scotland. But in America, they're going to trace that shit.
I think the big problem also with Scotch, or the thing is that Scotch is so limited. It has to come from Scotland, has to come from certain isles. And the other night, we were talking about Scotches, and your knowledge of Scotch really impresses me as you're like, oh, this is from the Isles, this is from the inland, this is from this is from there. There's a very limited amount of space that you could produce Scotch. And the amount of Scotch right now that's hitting the global markets is insane. Look at all the well Scotches in America. Like, there's the cheap shit, like Usher's Green Stripes and those crappy fucking Scotches. And that's the fucking rubbish. But to be Scotch, it has to be from Scotland.
It still has to be from Scotland. Well, it's
like
Napa.
Scotland's not that big.
Well, Napa's this big, and they still have Napa Cab hitting a shelf at $15, and you're like, what the fuck did you blend together to make a Napa Cab? And it sucks.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually kind of curious now how Napa Valley compares to the Scottish area of like Scotch production,
like land
wise. If they're bigger, smaller.
So there's two different things here, but they're kind of the same. Let me go with this. One, you can make any whiskey in Scotland. It's easy. It's just water and grain, but it's the peat. The peat is what really makes
And that only comes off
Scotch.
certain areas.
Exactly. Now with Napa, there's only so many rooms you could put grapes, but it's kind of the same level of peat. There's only so much peat. Actually, here's a really obscure thought. You think there'll ever be a point in time where they literally, in Scotland, whether it's 1,000 years, 10,000 years from now, they run out of peat?
Yes.
They have to. In theory, they have to run out of peat.
It'll get rarer and rarer. Because, I've seen the way they do it.
It's technically a net negative every year. If they dig a square cube and build it, well, you just lost that. And then you dig the next one. And every year, and all of a sudden you lose 10 acres. The ocean, the breeds, the trees, everything making peat is disappearing year by year. I'd be intrigued by it. At least Napa, every year you can grow a grape. You can always grow grape. But the only thing that affects it is the weather. If it gets too hot, all of a sudden one day you can't grow cab anymore.
And I know people talk a lot about cork trees and how cork's going to run out. But, cork trees actually replenish themselves pretty fast.
Yeah,
like,
it's surprisingly the skin.
Yeah, surprisingly enough that...
It's not like they're chopping the tree down.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there might be a cork shortage someday just because of the global production. However, there's also a lot of winemakers that are going to alternate methods of it.
Don't kid yourself. Probably someday somebody will plant a cork tree in, I don't know,
dude,
Arizona, and they go, "Oh, hey, it works."
Try and grow a cork tree in my backyard if I really wanted to. But you know what I couldn't? You know what I couldn't do? I couldn't have a peat marsh.
You couldn't have peat marsh. You'd have to literally make your own tank, feed it, and it would take you 10 years to make a block this big, and your scotch would cost you $1,000.
And I think that's the reason why they came up with this artificial tongue, or they're coming up with these ideas because of the fake markets. The fake markets are in a lot of things. Who cares if nobody's faking vodka, nobody's faking fucking rum, nobody's faking fucking gin. Scotch is a very special product.
Which I could get. I get it. It's Scotch. You have a name. You have a reputation. Same thing with Napa. Same thing with
limited area,
Burgundy,
limited production.
Tequila. Fine. So here's the fun one. And I think this would be fun. So let's talk about the positive of this. By the way, I'm imagining when we say tongue, we think of tongue versus probably like a dish and it drops it. Now imagine you have a robot and you're a lonely introvert with no friends, no girlfriend. You're hanging out. And then you got a robot who sits there and goes, "Hello, Damien. How do you like this wine?" And you taste it and go, "Oh, it tastes like this." And you taste it and you put it on a setting where he doesn't tell you what it is, but he's like, "Yes, it tastes like cherries and raspberries and smoked underbrush." And you're like, "Oh, I taste it." And then you get to have a conversation with the robot about what something tastes like. And then at the end, you could jokingly be like, "So what is it?" And he goes, "It's 1962 Chateau Mouton." I'm like, "Oh,
well, I think that the human nose can identify, well, you could smell up to like 10,000 different things. You can readily identify 1,000. I think you can.
Sounds about right.
I think you can, if they keep going down this path, they could probably program in a flavor of raspberry. They could take 100,000 different types of raspberries and put it into this computer's brain and say, these are what every type of raspberry tastes like. Cooked raspberries, dry raspberries, raspberries from New York, raspberries from fucking California, raspberries from fucking here, raspberries from there.
Right.
And they could program all this shit in, and then they could do it again with lychee fruit, and they could do it again with something else. And in a number of years,
oak will be easy because you just toast it and just
they could drop a little thing on, say, this has 3%, 23andMe with flavors. This has 3% of the raspberry flavor of New York. This has 8% of the raspberry flavor of Wisconsin. This has 4% of the raspberry flavor from California. This has lychee from here. This tastes like fucking...
By the way, you invented something. 23andMe in flavors.
Yeah, of wine flavors, yeah.
It's like Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. Instead, in this case, you'd make a 23
10,000 flavors.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where technology is going. And this is something that could be incorporated into a cell phone. And who knows, to get geeky to the nth degree, once we start putting computers on our bodies, who knows what this could lead to? This could be, you could have a thing on your finger that literally you put your finger in the wine
and your brain
and Elon Musk's little thing that's like incorporated in your brain instantly goes, this has flavors of Wisconsin apples, Granny Smith's from New York, these from New York.
True, but does it taste it? Like, all right, so let's say, all right, so I like what you...
But it's just getting getting the esters and the things. Granted, you might not taste it because everybody tastes different things.
Well, you're right, because in the end, it's just a chemical. That's all it is. It's just a chemical, and then but here's the crazy thing, though, is in the end, the one thing that really separates it is what you taste is not what I taste. Now, yeah, this is Barbour Vineyards 2007 Cab. That's what's in here, 100%. But we don't taste the same thing. you and I will equally taste 60% of the same thing. We know it's a cab, we know but you might get cinnamon, I might get clove. You might get raspberry, I might get cherry. Like there's those subtle
You also have
areas.
not programmed your brain to represent what a raspberry from 37 different countries tastes like.
True.
So you could be like, well, I don't taste raspberries. Well,
I never had a raspberry
you
from
haven't
that
had
country.
raspberries from 37 different countries. And once again, we talked about lychee or some of these flavors where you have been like, well, I never tasted that in wine. And now years later of drinking with me, you're like, I know exactly what that wine is. I know exactly what that flavor is.
There are a couple that I've learned because we sat here and said, this is
the
what
tars,
this is.
the roses. There's
Yeah.
certain things with Barolos where we've just broken it down. Now, as soon as you smell it, you're like, I know what that flavor is.
Honestly, Gamay is one of those ones where the second I smell a Gamay, I'm like, I can kind of know that it's a Gamay. Barolo is
or you
even,
think about,
or Nebbiolo in general is up there.
even something simple like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc very much has that grapefruit characteristic in it.
Not cat pee.
No, I don't. But that's something that not everybody's owned a cat. Not everybody's been peed on by a cat.
I have. It smells like cat pee to me.
Totally.
To some people, it's gooseberry and grapefruit.
And what's it? Gooseberry. What the fuck is a gooseberry?
It smells like cat pee.
Yeah. But that pink grapefruit characteristic you get out of them.
It's funny.
Once you
pink grapefruit.
Once you train somebody mentally about it, then they smell like, oh, this smells like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. But if you've never had it and you've never been exposed to it 1,000 times, whereas a computer, it's analytical.
It's already got it.
It's analytical.
It knows the chemicals.
It instantly.
But that takes the fun out of it because then becomes so. You don't get to sit there and look at a piece of art and go, oh, I get this idea from it. And then the robot goes, no, you're wrong. It's this, and it's actually a car accident. But you saw a beautiful flower. And
if they program in fucking sandalwood or cassis, or what's the other one? Green coffee bean, motherfuckers. The green
put
coffee
in green coffee bean, I'm done.
I swear, I was eating the green coffee beans in Seattle that time. Do you know what it tastes like?
You didn't tell you. It just tastes anything.
Wood.
Yeah, it tastes like the lima
shit.
beans you were given to like glue on your paper.
Yeah,
No, I think there's a certain point in time. It's you take the mystery out of things. And by the way, this is super cool. It's really cool somebody made this. Like, it's human ingenuity to the nth degree, and I love it. I think it's super cool. But if you start to lose the mystery in things, you lose the fun. And the mystery in wine is, what do you taste? I taste it. What do I taste? I taste it. And then, we talk about this. The conversation can be, hey, how was your day? What'd you see in politics? How was the sports game? Whatever. And then you come back to the wine to drinking. Oh, I'm tasting this. Blah, blah, blah. But if you have a robot just spitting out, here's what this is, here's what this is, all of a sudden it's no longer mystery. These are the facts. And while facts are great,
I guess it takes away from the
mystery is
sommelier
gone.
too.
Oh yeah, Som's useless. Those robots are gonna took our jobs.
Well, there you go. When the sommelier sits down and blind tastes to get his master somm degree or whatever, and he's got his 5 wines in front of him and he tastes them all, they stop the thing and they put the little device in there. Like, what'd you say for one? Well, I said this, this, and this, and the little device goes something completely opposite. You're like, fuck, I just failed.
Or you cheat and you have a device on your tongue that nobody knows is there, and it immediately sends a signal to your brain saying Barolo, 1979.
Now you're getting some cyberpunk.
Bruno Giocosa.
This is cyberpunk
Dude,
shit
people are cheating steroids shit across this country. Wait till Som's become making so much money that they have to cheat to make it look like they're a fucking dope guy who knows everything.
Yeah,
to be the next master Som.
Well, when you have a computer that can tell you all the flavor profiles in the wine, then it makes it even tougher for the sommelier to bullshit his way through it. So you're right. Maybe. Then.
So then you start cheating. Yeah, you put a thing on your tongue. You go Blade Runner and you put a thing on your tongue that tells you what every single thing is, because it neural links from Elon Musk thing into your brain. It says strawberry, raspberries from California, lychee from this area. Therefore, it must be a California cab, northern Mendocino area, underripe, 1999. It was a cold year. Say that, and then you spit that out.
I mean, how crazy is it that literally someday there could be a device that's either on your phone or something like that you could just dip in your wine.
But it wouldn't be a phone. It'll be like a tooth that they replace that does everything for you.
Oh, this year was a hot year. It had a moist spring. Cheers.
Cheers, fucker.
And
Moist.
it really does blow me away, like where technology is going and the way it's being incorporated. I really like the way that this could be a tool to counter like the counterfeits in the market.
No, I 100% agree. A tool, a great tool, a hammer that can be like fake, 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 but at the same time you use it wrong, And it's going to take something away from
And
it.
this is just the tip of the iceberg, too. This isn't like... Think
Yeah.
about the computers and technology, the way it's come in the last 5 years. They just created... This is brand spanking new.
Oh, it's insane.
In 5 years, you're going to be like, they're doing what? In 10 years, they're doing what?
So-
yeah, you're right. They're
but
going to
here's
put
another thing. How do you lie?
They're going to put a filling in your tooth that's going to be able to like identify flavors and profiles of wine and tell you whether or not it's fake. I mean...
So, and even then, and I always wonder this, and I think the day will come, and I think this will be really cool. I'd be intrigued to try. Is someday at some point they're going to make hypersonic jets that leave the atmosphere and come back down, so you can get to France to California in 2 hours. Now imagine if you had a freight truck that took the best Merlot out of France, the best Cabernet out of California, the best Cab Franc out of Argentina, and there's a facility in the middle, and they all blend it. And you're just going to end up doing it. It's probably going to be Chateau Rothschild or Paul Hobbs or whoever has the most money at the time. That'll be really cool. And then it's going to change the entire game of how things are made, because it's no longer Bordeaux's the best. It's a world-based wine kind of a thing.
All right. So speaking of Bordeaux, we're drinking Cabernet, and Bordeaux and Merlot dominate, or Cabernet and Merlot dominate Bordeaux. But Bordeaux is actually trying to approve new grapes for the first time.
Was it like 14?
They haven't passed. They put up their list.
I saw it.
Of potentials.
Yeah, I saw that. And
And
I, thought it was,
and-
I only recognized 2 of the grapes
And
out of all those.
White varietals too.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, there are a number of white varietals. So right now, the way it's basically put up is that you can't. If you're gonna grow these in Bordeaux Superior, your vineyard cannot be composed of more than 10% of these alternate varietals, and your final product cannot contain more than 5% of the product.
Yes.
Or I think I got that maybe backwards, but they're
It-
trying
it's
along those lines.
yes.
It's is what they're trying, and I was really surprised because one of them's a couple of them are Spanish varietals.
I know, because you got to start getting prepped for it's going to get hot.
Yep,
And it's gonna-
Tarriga Nacional
Saw that.
is one of the ones they're trying to be allowed to grow and to blend into Bordeaux's.
Yeah. Well, think about this. In the 1700s, Bordeaux was mostly made of Carmenere, Malbec, and Merlot. And it wasn't until Carmenere got wiped out, and then they brought in Cab and a few other things because, A, it was mostly a disease that killed it. Now it's no longer a disease, it's climate change. So now you got to prep. The nice thing about America is as long as you pay your taxes, do whatever you want. But with the laws they have in Europe, they really need to start getting real flexible on what you can and cannot do in regions, which sucks because you're going to lose the authenticity of something. But if you still make a good wine, I don't know. In my opinion, I say go for it.
I think they've chosen some good varietals. A lot of the varietals they chose were very high acid grapes. Bordeaux is meant to age. You
Yes.
want high acid grapes.
I imagine that group that I don't know, maybe it's a committee, maybe it's I don't know how they work that. Like it's a committee, a chair, whatever, the people who run Bordeaux sat there and they thought for a long time.
They did.
What gives little tannin, what gives off not offensive flavors and are similar-ish, and what has that acid to keep it fresh.
So the idea of these grape varietals that they chose were ones that were naturally high in acid, had strong aromatics, and have natural resistance against molds, mildews, and diseases. That's their livelihood. That's their money. Like one big disease or mold or something like that comes through, and you just lost $17 million on a vintage. You know.
Look, in the end, every business has to reinvent everything. Have you seen the new Corvette? They moved the engine to the back. It's now a mid-engine car because they're adapting. And no, you know what? People are going to go, it's not the Corvette like usual, but it's still really cool, so we got to go. It's smart. I like that. Bordeaux is kind of like, we have problems. We'd like to keep it original up to like 85%, but the rest of it, we're going to give you this leeway to, adapt and change as the change comes.
So, yeah, good point.
You have to. I mean, it's so important. This isn't, dude, Scotch. It doesn't matter if it's 150 degrees in Scotland. It's still going to be Scotch. They still have the peat. They could still distill it to whatever. Now, you're like, beer can be affected. Maybe you don't get the hops that you want. Maybe Mosaic has problems. If you have all your Mosaic is grown in Oregon and Oregon only, and it gets too hot and you don't have Mosaic grapes anymore, you can't make that beer. But distilling is the same. It's mostly barrel driven. Wine, dude, it's that temperature affects that grape, so you got to adjust.
So the grapes that are allowed, or that they're not allowed, but they're presenting to have, one, we talked about Tarriga Nacional, Spanish varietal. It's the flagship wine of Spain. a grape called Marcelon.
I thought it was Portugal.
Touriga National. Yeah, sorry, Portugal.
Okay.
Marcelon, which is a crossbreed of Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache Noir.
Interesting.
Small grapes, really small tannic grapes. Really intense flavors, and also very resilient when it comes to seasonal changes, rots, molds, and mildews. Grape varietal called Castettes, which I've never heard of, and that's why I'm actually looking at my thing. It's a grape that is a forgotten grape from the Gironde or the Pyrenees area. In 2016, there were only 2.9 hectares in the entire country of France.
That is so weird that you pull out that out of your hat.
Yeah. It says that it has a good resistance to mildews, and it's great for aging. So, I mean, it's a low acid grape, though. So I think these are going to be blenders. That's the point
That
of these.
2, 3, 4% grape.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're trying to find something that can blend. If your wine needs a little better aromatics, we have something. You need a little more acid, we have something. Is it going to be your backbone? Is it going to be your main one? No. Your main one is cab. If my cab needs a little more acid, hey, you know what? I can go ahead and add Marcelon.
And that's
If I
not
need a
going
little
to
more-
affect it. It's
No.
not going to, it might boost it up a little, but there's the acid that it
It's
missed.
seasoning.
Yeah.
It's the steak is there. The steak is your Cabernet and your Merlot. This is the salt and pepper.
Perfect.
This
example.
is the salt and pepper.
Perfect. Yeah. The steak is the cab. We're adding a little bit of rosemary.
Totally.
We might throw in a
Yes.
little bit of like lemon juice on it, but salt, pepper. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
This is just seasoning basically for it.
And oak is barbecue sauce, or they just and slather across that thing.
And the last one is Aranoa. So
Was Alicante Bouchette in there? I thought.
no.
Oh,
So Aranoa is a crossbreed of Tannat and Cab, developed
Tannic grapes.
in a lab in France.
I wonder who has the patent on that one.
Right? Super tannic, high in acid. I mean, just a good blender. And then in the whites, here's another Portugal one. I don't know. Somebody from Portugal must have slept with somebody from France, and they must have, because you got Touriga National, and here's for whites. You know, the whites of Bordeaux are Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon.
Yeah.
Alvarinho.
Okay. High acid.
Yep. So you're familiar. We're familiar with Albarino or Alvarinho, same grape.
Yeah.
Aromatic white, grown in both.
Lots of acid,
Yes.
sippy, racy, but not intrusive.
It's a good.
I'd be intrigued to see how Bordeaux does if they did what Rhone did. You know how like Côte Rôtie, you have Syrah and that Viognier to like knock it up. Now, okay, let's do this. Let's think about what Rhone did. And at some point in some time, somebody sat there and said, I'm going to do Syrah, but the nose isn't there. And somebody came along and says, well, hey, add a little Viognier and it boosts it up. And they went, oh, shit, this is amazing. So then before they do that, I bet like Bordeaux is going through the same thing where they're like, well, we just need that little caffeine kick. We need that little boost to help us go.
So I said earlier in the show, warm climate Chardonnay is something that makes us all cringe. Like hot climate Chardonnay, you're like,
There's nothing better than, muddled celery.
What's special about Albarino or Alvarinho is that it will develop great aromatics and great acid in hot climate. That's why they grow it in parts of Portugal and Spain to great success. So if your temperatures are warming up in your region and you want a grape that you can grow in a hotter climate, Albarino is a perfect little grape to grow there because it can add some aromatics to your wine. Even if it's hot as fuck, it still produces great acid. So that's why I think they chose that grape. Now, granted, none of these have been approved yet, but
Probably.
these are the ones they presented.
Yeah.
Manseng, Manseng. I've never heard of this. This is a unique one. It says it's a century-old grape varietal that was recently visited by decanter. It has seductive qualities that involve sweetness and high acid, but it's super resistant to gray rot. Never heard of
That's
it.
cool.
Like, I think it's just one of those easy-drinking white grapes. I mean, in Europe, you have a ton of white grapes that they just blend or distill or they just drink in your hometown. Nobody knows what the fuck it is.
Yeah, because there's the guy who has the one hill and they all get to geek out about it. I mean, so like, I'm intrigued to see what Napa will do in the future for what they do. Now, granted, they always do different blends. Like I've had Cab Syrah blends, I've had Syrah Zin blends. You have those the Meritage blends with everything. I know this one was, if I remember when I got this was, I think it was like almost 100% Cab. They did this on French oak for a while. I like this. This one grew on me for a while.
This wine,
I'm just intrigued to see what Napa does over the next decade.
This wine is drinking fantastic for a Cabernet Sauvignon. What is this? 07?
2007.
It's got balance. It has a finish.
Mm-hmm.
The mid palate is a little unilateral. It kind of just I hate using the word smooth. I know it's a taboo term amongst
Your favorite 5-letter word?
Yeah. God.
You know what else is a great 5-letter word?
Moist.
Moist.
Cheers. That almost came out the nose. We have our new shirts. So this wine has an exceptionally long finish, but to me, it doesn't have the peaks and the valleys in the mid palate. It is very long and wavy, but it doesn't have the highs and the lows like some wines that we drink and we talk about. It's not a bad thing. I think it's fantastic. This wine, if I was to rate this wine on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to put it in a high 8, maybe a low 9 as far as quality.
Now, we're not talking like 90 points.
This isn't
or
spectator enthusiast bullshit because, to be honest, those people review their wines on a roughly a 25-point scale.
Yeah.
You never see a wine below 75 points.
No.
And if somebody,
an 8.5 is a good thing for what
and
we're
if
talking
somebody gets a 75, you do not want that wine.
about. No.
If I averaged a B plus through high school, my parents would have loved me.
Yeah. This wine to
A
me.
B plus is an 88.
Yeah.
You know, that's right about there, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I'm really happy with a wine like this because this probably would have been fine with food, but it's actually fine by itself. Like, there's some wines you go, I wish I had that with food, or I wish I didn't eat that with this. This is one of those wines, sipping on it, the oak comes off nicely and creamy. Like, the oak is there. It's a lot there. I pick it up a little more. I get a little chocolate bacon almost on the back end, but the fruit comes first, which I like. That's cool. I don't want it to be dominated by oak, but it's big. And by big, minus the tannin. The tannins are all smoothed out. It's all a solid, like, circular stone. It's not jagged. It's not rough. It's there. But the oak is a little more dominant than I would imagine, like easier wines are. And not in a bad way. I think it complements the wine. So it's fruit and then immediate chocolatey bacon kind of flavor. So to me, it's a chocolate cherried bacon flavored bomb, which isn't bad. Like it's a delicious wine in a good way, but this is one of those wines where people who would love a Silver Oak or Franciscan or one of those wines, they want to get into the aged stuff and they want to learn how to branch into aged wine. This would be a great aged wine for them to kind of come into.
So when we went to high school or we were in junior high, elementary school, we were taught the tongue had 4 taste buds. Bitter, sweet, salt, and sour.
That was like 6.
Well, we have 5. There's umami.
Don't forget umami. Yeah, that's the 6th.
That's 5. Bitter, sweet, salt, and sour. Savory is number
Sweet.
5. Bitter, sweet, salt, and sour. 5
Umami
is umami.
And savory.
Umami
It's
is
not the same
savory.
thing?
They're the same thing.
Okay.
They're the same exact thing. That's your 5th taste bud. That's it. You got it. 5.
But I thought there was heat. Spice, whatever they called it.
So
All right, whatever.
this is one of the only
We'll
wines.
argue about this when it's over.
This is one of the only wines I've ever had that touches the 5th taste bud.
That umami flavor.
This wine is savory. Potatoes are savory.
Mushrooms are savory.
Savory. It has that comfort feeling when you drink it. It's that feeling of I'm safe. I'm happy. Like there's this.
It's a coating. It's
Yes.
a coating sensation.
Eat
coats
a
the
shit
tongue.
ton. Thanksgiving dinner, mashed potatoes. Like you eat mashed potatoes, the world is okay.
Yeah.
This wine to me is literally one of the few wines I've ever had in my life where I can actually say that I'm getting that 5th taste bud. Like
That's awesome.
It feels savory. Like I feel comfortable drinking this wine, which is weird to say because often I say this wine is bitter, this wine is sweet, this wine. I never said salty in a wine. I've said salty in a beer for the first time.
I've said salty in like Chablis, but I
Actually,
say
you're
it
right.
as briny.
Okay,
I say briny.
And salinity. Actually, I'm completely
Salinity.
wrong. Verdicchio and some of these Italian wines have that salty characteristic. So you're right. I was wrong. I have said salty with some wines.
I haven't had heat as much unless you get that unbalanced high alcohol, but
And some wines have a sour characteristic and a tanginess to it a little bit, but
it's a bad wine.
But really, it's bitter and sweet are the two prominent taste buds in wine. Never savory, never. And this wine has that to me. It's so weird to say that. Like that's how I feel right now, just drinking this. And I think just that without the peaks and the valleys, it has that kind of unilateral. Like, damn, this is good. It keeps going and going and going, and that to me is kind of nice.
It's also been nice that this has been open now for, I don't know what time we're at, but it hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down. It's just kind of been like, just perfectly plateauing this whole time. It's just a journey the whole way through.
I'm glad we decanted it. I mean, the main reason we decanted it was because John broke the cork 3 separate times
I don't know if you could see it.
and pushed it into the bottle.
The cork it's literally in the bottle.
There, yeah. It's like the little ship in the bottle. Like it's never coming out.
I spent 10 minutes trying to dig it out.
We used a lobster poker to try to poke it through.
It's over here somewhere.
There it is. You never know. Hey,
Sometimes you got to bust the lobster poker out to get the cork. Just
hey, unique wine utensils. You get by with what you have.
exactly.
You know, I mean, just like the Asso. I mean, we tried that, but it was already broke by then.
Broke. That was good, man. I loved every bit about this.
The wine?
Everything.
Conversations?
Every bit about it. As usual.
Where are we at on time? I'm going to look
know.
real quick. Because we're trying to keep the episodes to a more focused level.
Yeah. No, I think this was right. That was good.
We're at 1 hour.
1 hour.
We can talk for another 5-10 minutes.
I mean, I can, but I'm going to go to the bathroom if we do that.
Oh, it's done. No.
We had a lot of beer before we did this one, too, though.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Final thoughts for you.
Dude, man, this is fun. I like these. I hope to bring more to you guys where we have a normal conversation. We like to bring our thoughts, more of what's going on in the industry and just kind of general life-based things and philosophy-driven things with our cab conversations. We'll do more of these. I've got a lot of Cabernets we can break out and talk about. So we'll talk about the wine. We'll just talk about life in general. These are our good... our thoughts that we always want to bring to the table, and we'll do our regular shows as an educational experience. So like you can know the gins or the wines or the scotches or the beers, and we'll bring them all to the table. But this is you and me. The Cabernet conversation is our time. This is the things we want to talk about as we go.
If we weren't recording, these are the conversations you and I would have drinking this bottle tonight.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Think about it the same way. If you have your friends around and you're all drinking, this is it.
Because if we're doing Chianti Classico, we're doing Barolo, we're doing these regions, we're talking about the regions, it's more educational based. Honestly, the Cabernet conversations, it's just a lot of fun. We're going to talk about society, what's going on in the business, my rants on Facebook about the distributors and what's going on right now in the distribution business and how...
If you want to get a couple laughs, follow him on Facebook. He's got it going on right now.
Yes, follow me on Facebook. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And also follow us on Instagram. It's Spilling the Truth Podcast. We're trying to not only post all the bottles we have, we're trying to follow our lives, what's going on. Dinners on Thursdays with John's dad.
We'll reach out to you guys, and if we like something and we want to comment on it, we will, because we like what you guys do.
And please also send us recommendations. You know,
definitely. We definitely want to hear your thoughts.
One of the things recently is that a lot of people have actually commented to us that they love listening to our conversations, but sometimes they tune into a show because they want to get that information out of a show. If it's a Chianti Classico show, we're going to try and keep a little more focus in the first hour on Chianti Classico and then spend the next 4 hours just drinking and having fun.
But if you guys have a random thought or a question you want to throw out there, we'll bring it up at some point. I promise you we don't forget about it.
And if you want us to do a region, you're like, man, I want to learn more about Temecula almond Chardonnay. Like,
we'll do a Temecula almond. It's not going to be fun, but we'll do it.
Mail, man. It's going to be fun.
We'll do it.
Totally. Awesome, man, dude.
This is a very moist episode, buddy.
Dude, cheers to that.
Cheers, man.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Love you. I literally cannot hold this anymore.